On my husband's 50th birthday, he called me and said the dinner was canceled. I believed him for 11 minutes. That was how long it took me to drive past the restaurant he thought I would never see. Through the front window, I watched Nolan raise a champagne glass to a woman I had not sat across from in almost 20 years. His daughter was beside her, smiling at the cake between them. My place was not empty because I was late. My place was not there at all. In the chair that should have been mine sat Renee Lattimore, the wife Nolan had before me. I did not walk inside. I did not call his name. I did not tap on the glass or make a scene for the other diners to remember later. I stood outside in the cold and understood for the first time in 23 years that I had been left out of my own marriage. My name is Adrienne Parker. I am 51 years old now, and for more than 2 decades I thought I knew what kind of life I had built. I was wrong. The call came at 5:47 that evening while I was merging onto the interstate with Nolan's gifts wrapped in silver paper on the passenger seat. I had bought him a leather watch roll, a rare bottle of bourbon he had been talking about since Christmas, and a framed photograph from our trip to Savannah, back when I still believed we were aging into something honest. His voice came through the car speakers, smooth and careful. "Addie, small change of plans," he said. Nobody called me Addie except Nolan. That used to soften me. "What happened?" "The restaurant had a pipe burst or something, total mess. They had to close the dining room." "Do you want me to find somewhere else? I can call around." "No," he said too fast. "Don't worry about it. I'll just grab something quick with a couple guys from the office. You don't need to wait up." I looked at the wrapped gifts beside me. "It's your 50th birthday," I said. "I know. We'll do something this weekend?" "Happy birthday, Nolan." "I love you." "Love you too," he said, and hung up before I finished breathing out. For a moment, I drove with the turn signal clicking, though I was already in my lane. There are instincts a woman earns after 2 decades of marriage. Not suspicion exactly. Something quieter. A shift in tone. A sentence shaped too cleanly. A no that arrives before the question has landed. I did not decide to keep driving toward Marchetti's. I simply did not turn around. Traffic thinned as I got closer to downtown. The February sky had already gone dark, and the storefront windows gave off that warm city glow that makes every restaurant look like it belongs to someone else's celebration. Nolan had chosen Marchetti's himself 3 weeks earlier. Then he changed the reservation to a later time because, he said, a client call might run long. I had teased him about working on his 50th birthday, and he kissed my forehead and told me partnership came with expectations. He had made partner at the engineering firm in March. Since then, his calendar had filled with dinners I was not invited to and stories I could not quite picture. I told myself it was work. Men at that age sometimes begin trying to prove they are not slowing down. New suits, longer hours, more careful grooming, a sudden interest in wine pairings and networking dinners. I had made room for that explanation because room is what wives are trained to make. But there had been other things. There was the way Nolan started carrying his phone from room to room, even when he was only going to refill his water glass. There was the new habit of turning the screen face down when he sat beside me on the sofa. There was the gym bag that came home with clean clothes still folded inside. None of it looked like proof. That is the hardest part about slow betrayal. Each piece is small enough to explain away. A changed passcode, a late dinner, a guarded call, a daughter who never quite warms to you. One by one, they look like ordinary life. Together they become a map. Chandra calling more often, not to talk to me, but to talk to her father in his office with the door shut. Chandra was Nolan's daughter from his first marriage. She was 28 now, old enough to be kind if she wanted to be, old enough to be distant if that was easier. Renee's name had started appearing again in small doses. Renee said Chandra's having a hard semester. Renee mentioned the condo fees are going up. Renee ran into one of the old neighbors. He said the name lightly, as if a man mentioning his ex-wife that often was only a sign of healthy co-parenting and maturity. Maybe it was. I had wanted it to be. I parked across from Marchetti's in the shadow between 2 streetlights. I told myself I only wanted to see the damage. I expected work vans, yellow tape, a manager standing outside with a clipboard. Some visible reason a reservation for my husband's 50th birthday had vanished less than an hour before dinner. The restaurant looked perfect. Warm lights, full tables, wine glasses catching gold from the sconces, no pipe burst, no apology signs, no canceled evening. I walked along the sidewalk instead of going through the front door. Some part of me chose the shadows before the rest of me caught up. Nolan always requested the corner table near the side window because he liked having his back to the wall. I found it in seconds. He was laughing, not polite laughing, not work dinner laughing, real laughing, head tipped back, hand over his chest, the way he used to laugh with me when we were younger and before life became something we mostly managed. Across from him sat Renee Lattimore. She was 48, still elegant, still wearing confidence like a tailored coat. Her dark hair fell smooth around her shoulders. She wore 3 months that I had held them in my hands and chosen the explanation that let my life stay whole. I drove home slowly. I passed the elementary school where Chandra used to ride her bike before I met Nolan. I passed the coffee shop where he and I had our first serious conversation about marriage. I passed the corner florist where he used to buy roses on ordinary Fridays, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he said a woman should not only get flowers when a man needed forgiveness. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I sat there for a few minutes, then went inside and opened the banking app on my phone. Before I logged in, I stood in the entryway and looked at the framed photos along the hall. Nolan and me at our wedding, both of us smiling like middle-aged love had made us wiser. Chandra at her college graduation, standing between us but leaning slightly toward her father. My mother at Thanksgiving, one hand on Nolan's shoulder, telling him he was a good man because he always made sure everybody had a plate. That hallway had always felt like proof that time could blend people together if everyone tried hard enough. That night, it looked like a display I had curated for a museum of things I wanted to believe. Not out of suspicion at first, out of habit. But once I was staring at our shared credit card statement, I could not stop scrolling. Restaurant charges almost every Thursday. $200 here, $300 there, sometimes more. Always dinner hour. Always places too nice for a quick solo meal and too frequent for client entertaining that never seemed to produce a client name. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop, the same kind I used years ago when I managed operations budgets before starting my own consulting work. Date, restaurant, amount, card, notes. Then I opened Nolan's shared calendar. He had never turned it off from the years when we coordinated Chandra's college visits and family events. Back then, our lives still overlapped neatly enough to need color coding. The pattern appeared fast. Thursdays, a few Fridays, charges clustered around dates that meant nothing to me until I remembered small facts Nolan had once mentioned, and I had stored without meaning to. Renee's birthday, Chandra's graduate school orientation, the anniversary of Renee's father's death. Their private calendar had been hiding inside our public one. Nolan came home close to 11 that night, smelling faintly of garlic and wine. He kissed my cheek and apologized for the restaurant problem. "Ridiculous timing," he said, "on my birthday of all nights." "These things happen," I said. "You okay?" "Of course. I ordered takeout." He believed me instantly. That was a lesson too. People believe what lets them keep moving. He went upstairs to shower. I stayed in the dark kitchen, my spreadsheet glowing on the counter, rows of dates lining up like witnesses. Somewhere around midnight, I stopped feeling like a wife waiting for an explanation. I started feeling like someone building a case. The next morning, Nolan was easier to read than he knew. He came downstairs for coffee already rehearsed. His sentences were polished, his casual tone just a shade too casual. "Ran into Chandra last night, actually," he said, pouring cream into his mug. "Grabbed a quick bite." "Small world," I said. "Yeah, she's doing all right. Busy." "That's good." He watched me for a second, trying to decide whether my face held questions. I gave him none. I made him eggs the way he liked them, yolks just barely set. I asked about his morning meeting. I smiled when he complained about a client deadline. By the time he left, briefcase in hand, kiss on my cheek, he believed his wife of 23 years suspected nothing. I gave him 20 minutes. Then I went into his office. I want to say I felt guilty. I did not. What I felt was the strange relief of opening a door I had stood in front of for months, waiting for permission that was never coming. His desk drawers were unlocked. That told me something by itself. Nolan had never imagined I would look because for 23 years I never had. In the bottom drawer, beneath warranty booklets and old tax envelopes, I found a slim accordion folder. The label was in his handwriting. Misc Business. I sat in his chair and opened it. Restaurant receipts. The same dates I had entered into my spreadsheet, but some had notes in his handwriting. Initials, RLCP, sometimes just a check mark. Hotel invoices. 3 of them, all from a boutique inn 40 minutes outside the city, the kind of place with a spa and a vineyard view. The kind of place Nolan and I once talked about visiting for our 20th anniversary before he said work was too demanding that year. Wine purchases from a specialty shop I did not recognize. Always 2 bottles. Always Thursdays. Parking receipts from a garage near Renee's neighborhood. And near the bottom, last night's receipt from Marchetti's. 4 place settings, 3 entrees, 1 birthday cake, reservation name, Parker, party of 4, not office guys, not a quick bite with Chandra, a birthday dinner under our last name at a restaurant where Nolan and I had celebrated 3 anniversaries. There was one more thing tucked behind that receipt, a small printed confirmation from a florist. Not the florist near our house, but one near Renee's condo. The order was for 50 white roses and a card I could not see because the message was not printed on the copy. The delivery date was the morning of Nolan's birthday. I held that receipt longer than the hotel invoices. White roses had been ours, not in some dramatic, childish way. But after my father died, Nolan sent white roses to my office every year on the anniversary because he said grief should never have to remind people of itself alone. I had loved him for that. I had defended him to my own family for that. I had told my sisters that Nolan understood tenderness in a way my first husband never had. Seeing those flowers routed somewhere else did not hurt because flowers mattered. It hurt because tenderness had become another expense category I did not know I was sharing. I put everything back exactly where I found it. Folder squared, drawer closed with the same soft click he always used. Then I called Darius Brooks. Darius had been my accountant since before I married Nolan. He knew my business, my savings, my mother's estate, the lake property I had almost bought and decided against. He was steady in the way numbers people can be steady when they also happen to care about you. He answered on the second ring. "Adrienne," he said, happy belated to Nolan. "How was the dinner?" "It did not happen the way I expected." Something in my voice changed him. "Tell me," he said. So I did. The canceled dinner, the restaurant window, Renee, Chandra, the cake, the chair, the receipts, the Thursdays, the hotel invoices, the parking garage. I told him all of it while sitting in Nolan's office with my hand resting on the desk where my husband had hidden a second life in a folder marked Misc Business. Darius did not interrupt. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "Adrienne, listen carefully," he said. "This is not random spending. Random spending does not organize itself around one person's schedule for months. Someone has been managing this carefully, which means someone has been counting on you, never looking." "What do I do?" "Nothing yet." I closed my eyes. "Darius." "I know. But don't confront him tonight. The moment he knows you're aware, he will either get sloppy and hide things fast, or he will get careful and hide things better." Right when my first consulting contract crossed 6 figures, he was the one who told me not to let romance make my independence look optional. When Nolan and I married, Darius had insisted I keep my business accounts clean and separate, even though I teased him for being suspicious by profession. "I am not suspicious," he had said back then. "I am paid to respect what people work too hard to earn." I remembered that while he moved through our statements line by line, mortgage, utilities, insurance, normal things, then the odd things. Checks written from the household account during months when Nolan told me we were tightening spending, card payments that made no sense beside the balances I remembered, cash withdrawals timed around trips I had not taken. It was like watching a second household appear in negative space. Then Darius tapped the screen. Here." His voice had gone calm in the way calm people sound when something ugly has just become visible. "Recurring transfer. $600 on the first of every month. Labeled personal. 4 years. To where?" He clicked through the receiving account details and cross-checked them against old records from before Nolan and I married, back when we reviewed his divorce obligations and financial history. Darius looked up at me. "Renee." The room did not move, but I felt it tilt. $600 a month, he said. Every month for 4 years, over $28,000, and that is just one line. Once we knew what to look for, more appeared. Quarterly payments to a property management company. Darius traced it to the condo complex where Renee lived, a separate stream of payments to a student loan servicer. Not in Nolan's name, not in mine. Chandra's graduate school debt, quietly reduced $200 at a time. Property taxes on a house I did not recognize until Darius searched the address and found Renee's name tied to it. Then a loan document, co-signed by Nolan. I stood up too quickly and had to grip the back of the chair. "Adrienne," Darius said softly, "keep going." He did. 2 vacations, Charleston and the Outer Banks, both paid through a travel agency, both billed to a card Nolan used for business travel, both trips listed 4 travelers. I sat back down. 4 travelers? I asked. Darius turned the screen toward me. The agency invoice did not list full names, only initials and ages for insurance coverage, NPRLCP, and one more set of initials I did not recognize at first. ML Darius searched while I sat there with my hands folded so tightly my knuckles ached. Within minutes, he found a public social media post from Renee's younger brother, Malik, thanking Nolan and Sis for a beach week that had helped the family reset after a hard year. Nolan had not just been helping his ex-wife and daughter. He had become useful to her extended family, too. The man... You interrupted the lie. That sentence stayed with me. He reached across the table and touched my hand, not as an accountant, but as an old friend. "Protect yourself now," he said, not after a conversation with him. "Now. Open accounts he does not know about. Redirect your consulting income. Print everything. Save copies outside this house. Whatever you decide, decide from strength." Part of me was still in that parking lot, staring at the empty chair angled away from the table. But another part of me had begun to move. "Tell me exactly what to do," I said. The next 3 days were quiet from the outside and seismic underneath. I opened a personal checking account at a bank across town. I called my 3 biggest consulting clients and asked them to route future invoices to a different account for bookkeeping reasons. Nobody questioned it. I had earned that trust. I met with an attorney Darius recommended, Patrice Vaughn, a sharp, unhurried woman who listened without judgment and asked questions that made me feel less crazy with every answer. She explained that marital money secretly funneled to Renee and Chandra could matter in a divorce. She told me to keep documenting. She told me not to warn Nolan before my protection was in place. Patrice also asked the question I had been avoiding. "Do you want to save the marriage?" The room was quiet after she said it. Her office overlooked a row of courthouse buildings, all stone and glass, and people carrying folders that probably held other lives coming apart in more ordinary ways. "I do not know yet," I said. It was the most honest answer I had. She nodded. "Then protect yourself as if you are leaving, and decide emotionally when you are ready. Protection is not revenge. It is preparation." That sentence helped me more than any sympathy could have. I had been afraid that every practical move made me colder. Patrice made me see that practical moves were how a woman stayed free enough to choose without being trapped by panic. So I did not warn him. I froze 2 recurring transfers we could identify clearly, Renee's condo association payments and Chandra's student loan payment. I redirected the same amount into the new account for safekeeping until Patrice advised me otherwise. When I clicked confirm, my hand shook. Then it stopped. I was not stealing anything. I was simply refusing to keep paying for a family that had never invited me to the table. Nolan noticed nothing for 3 days. He kissed me goodbye each morning. He asked about my consulting projects. He complained about work. He moved through our house with the confidence of a man whose first life still hid his second one. There was one dinner during those 3 days that almost broke me. He grilled salmon because he knew I liked it with lemon and dill. He asked if I wanted music on while we ate. He told me a story about a young engineer at the firm who reminded him of himself at 30. The whole evening was gentle, ordinary, almost sweet. That was when I understood why so many women stay confused for so long. Betrayal does not erase every tender habit. Sometimes the person hurting you still knows how you take your tea. Sometimes he still moves your car when the street sweeper comes. Sometimes he still says your name softly across the kitchen and makes the lie harder to hold because part of him is still familiar. I cleaned the plates after dinner while Nolan answered a text in the hallway with his body angled away from me. Familiar was not the same as faithful. On the third evening, my phone rang at 8:09. Nolan. I heard the difference in his voice before he finished the first sentence. Not smooth now, tight, embarrassed, trying hard not to sound embarrassed. Hey, he said, quick question. Did something happen with the visa? It's not going through. I was sitting in the living room with a cup of tea beside me. Where are you? A pause. Dinner with Chandra. Another pause. And a friend. Restaurant noise hummed behind him. Glasses, voices. The sound of a dining room I recognized because I had stood outside its window 5 nights earlier. The card should be fine, I said. Try the Amex. He did. I waited. His breath changed. That one is declining too. This does not make sense. We have not had issues. I moved some things around, I said. Financial planning. Darius has been helping me tighten up our accounts. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear a waiter in the background asking if he wanted to try another payment method or step aside to resolve it. Nolan muttered something to someone. Then his voice came back lower. Adrienne, what is going on? I stopped paying for a family I don't belong to. The silence after that was different. He had not understood what I knew until that sentence landed. Adrienne, he began. I hung up. I set the phone on the coffee table and listened to the house around me. The refrigerator humming, the wind moving through the maple tree outside, my own breath steady in my chest. I expected grief to crash over me. Instead, I felt still. 23 years, and it took one declined card in a restaurant I used to love for him to understand that I knew. Nolan came home 40 minutes later. I heard the tires first, too fast over the gravel. The engine cut off sharply. The front door opened, and he came in already talking. Adrienne, we need to talk about this right now. I agree. My calm startled him more than anger would have. He had expected a fight, something loud he could match, something he could turn into a conversation about my tone instead of his choices. Instead, he found me at the dining table with a manila folder in front of me. He sat slowly. It's not what you think, he said. Then tell me what it is. I opened the folder and laid the documents between us one by one. Bank statements with recurring transfers highlighted, condo association payments, student loan records, property tax documents, travel invoices, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, the Marchetti's receipt. Then I placed 3 photographs on top. I had taken them through the restaurant window. Nolan laughing, Renee beside him, Chandra leaning into her mother, the cake glowing under warm light. He looked at each piece without touching anything. His face changed slowly, not the face of a man caught in one lie, the face of a man realizing the lie had become too large to survive daylight. Renee had financial trouble, he said finally. After her business fell apart, Chandra was worried about her. She asked me to help. For 6 years. It was temporary at first. 6 years. He rubbed a hand over his face. Then it became a habit. Then it became... I don't know. I do, I said. It became a second household. He flinched. That is not fair. From where I am sitting, you built an entire obligation using money that was half mine, without once asking whether I wanted to help. And the worst part is, Nolan, maybe I would have helped. His eyes lifted to mine. If you had come to me 6 years ago and said Renee was struggling and Chandra was scared, I might have said yes. I am not cruel. You know that. I thought you would say no. You decided my answer before you asked the question. He had no answer. That is not protecting me from a hard conversation, I said. That is deciding I did not deserve to be part of one. Nolan looked down at the photographs again. In one of them, he was mid-laugh, his face open and easy in a way I had not seen at home in years. Please, he said, give me a chance to fix this. I'll stop everything. I'll cut them off if that is what you need. That is not what I need. He blinked, confused. I do not want you to punish Chandra for loving her mother. I do not want you to pretend Renee disappears because you got caught. That would not repair anything. Then what do you want? Honesty before I have to hunt for it. The room went quiet. This is not just about money, I said. Darius and Patrice can untangle the money. This is about the fact that for 6 years you were caring for, celebrating with, and financing another family, while I sat across from you every night believing we were building one life together. My voice shook then, only a little. You did not hide an expense from me, Nolan. You hid a marriage inside my marriage. He reached for my hand. I let him take it for a moment because 23 years do not vanish just because the truth arrives. His fingers were warm and familiar. That almost hurt worse. Then I pulled my hand back. I slid off my wedding ring. I had not planned it. I had not rehearsed it. But the movement felt like the natural end of everything on the table. I placed the ring beside the photographs. You did not lose me tonight, I said. You lost me the day you decided to build a life I was paying for, but was never allowed to enter. He stared at the ring. Adrienne. This time my name sounded like a plea. I was ashamed, he said suddenly. That is what you do not understand. I was ashamed that Renee still needed me after all these years. Ashamed that Chandra still saw me as the only person who could fix things. Ashamed that I liked being needed. That was the first true thing he had said all night. I could hear it. For a moment, the anger in me loosened enough to make room for pity. Nolan had always needed to be the good man, the dependable man, the father who never failed twice. Helping Renee let him keep an old promise. Hiding it from me let him avoid the cost of making a new one. But pity is not permission. You liked being needed by them, I said. And he said he had made poor choices. He said he had compartmentalized. He said he never stopped loving me. On the second session, I asked him to name one thing he gave up so Renee and Chandra could have what they had. He talked about stress. He talked about pressure. He talked about guilt. I asked again, what did you give up? He went quiet, because the answer was me. My kitchen, my vacations, my plans, my sense of reality. My right to consent. After that, I stopped going. I told him no. What he broke could not be repaired by subtracting people after the damage was done. The wound was not that he cared about his daughter or even that he had compassion for his ex-wife. The wound was that he made me pay for choices I was not allowed to know existed. I filed for divorce on a Tuesday morning in late October in Patrice's office. The folder was thorough. Every transfer accounted for. Every account traced. I heard it secondhand through Darius, because small professional circles carry news even when nobody officially shares it. Nolan could no longer cover her condo fees quietly. Chandra's student loan payments stopped disappearing $200 at a time. The dinners stopped. The birthday celebrations that had apparently happened every year without me dissolved when the money that funded them stopped flowing from an account I had not known I was feeding. I will not pretend I felt nothing. There was a small, sharp satisfaction in it, but mostly I felt balance, not joy, not revenge. Balance. Chandra called me once near the end of the proceedings. Her voice was tight with anger. You destroyed my father's happiness, she said. A real wife would have found a way to forgive him for the sake of the family. I closed my eyes. Chandra, I spent 6 years being told I was part of a family your father was not telling the truth to. I am sorry this hurts you, but I did not destroy anything. I stopped paying for something I was never invited to be part of. She hung up. I did not call back. Some bridges are not yours to rebuild. By the following spring, the settlement was final. I kept the house we had shared for 2 decades, then chose to sell it. Too many rooms held memories I did not want arranged around me. The kitchen where I made eggs the morning after his birthday while he lied. The office where I found the folder. The driveway where his tires came in too fast the night he finally understood I knew. I bought a smaller place instead. A lakeside cottage 40 minutes outside the city, with wide windows, a quiet dock, and morning light that reached across the floor without asking permission. I kept my consulting business. I expanded it, actually. I took on new clients because I suddenly had time and energy that used to disappear into maintaining a marriage that had required more repair than I understood. Darius, subscribe and stay close. There are more stories about trust, family, and finding the courage to believe yourself, and I do not want you to miss the next one.